Hello, everyone. This is our presentation on social engineering for CSE 484. Now we're going to go over a brief outline of what we'll be covering in our presentation today. First, we're going to start out with what is social engineering. Then we'll be going in and tackling the impacts of social engineering. Then we'll be looking into the types of social engineering and what those look like, as well as the social engineering process as a whole. Then we'll be tackling the recent attack on Riot Games and how that happened. And then finally, we'll be going in and talking about how to protect against social engineering and what are best steps to take.
So that brings us to our first topic. What is social engineering? Social engineering is a type of psychological manipulation aimed towards influencing people to perform certain actions and/or reveal confidential information. It's typically through the use of deception and persuasion to convince individuals to give away sensitive information or granting access to restricted areas or information. The main goal of social engineering is to exploit human weaknesses such as trust, fear, or curiosity in order to gain access to sensitive information or systems.
Often, when we think about security risks for companies, we think of things like hacking or corporate sabotage, insider attacks. But the sad truth of it is that social engineering makes up a vast majority of the attacks that modern day companies have to deal with. The most common of which are phishing, water holing, tailgating, and shoulder surfing. Next up, we'll be taking a little bit of a deeper dive into the previously mentioned forms of social engineering. The first of which is phishing. Phishing oftentimes takes advantage of a sense of urgency to get someone to give them their information via some form of impersonation. We see this oftentimes people saying that they're a member of the bank or their computer is gonna get locked down or something along those lines. They'll oftentimes send emails or create websites that look like legitimate sources, and then by telling the victim that there's a need for immediate action right now, trick them into giving them what they want. To avoid phishing, it basically just boils down to remaining cautious and suspicious of everyone. That unless you know the person personally and have them right there in front of you, even now with more advancement as technology, just being aware that this could be someone else impersonating the person you think they are, and being aware that if they are asking you to install anything or send something like money, just to always maintain a healthy dose of skepticism. The next form that we talked about was water holing. Water holing is, again, the type of attack that is asking someone to go to a website that may look legitimate but is actually made entirely for the purpose of infecting someone's computer with something like malware or viruses to help steal sensitive information from the victim. Water holing is often used on specific industries or groups of individuals who may be at risk. To prevent water holing, it's always a good idea to keep your antivirus and various security measures up to date, as well as a firewall. With this, it's also important to make sure that your security certificates are up to date and that you're only visiting trusted websites. A lot of times websites have security measures in place that help them basically steer you away from other websites impersonating them. Shoulder surfing. Tailgating, as we talked about, again, is a what's often referred to as a hold the door attack. This is a form of physical intrusion in which the attacker impersonates someone like a handyman or a delivery person, or even just someone who works at the company, and as someone is entering the building, may ask them to hold the door, trying to take advantage of people's natural tendency to avoid conflict or just trust or kindness. This type of attack was made famous by Frank Abagnale, who is from the movie Catch Me If You Can, the famous con man. Um, this type of social engineering is often used as sort of a gateway to help the attacker perform other forms of social engineering, like shoulder surfing. Shoulder surfing, as we talked about, is the act of peering over someone's shoulder and attempting to get information in that way. Shoulder surfing, if it's not noticed, is actually really hard to detect. It oftentimes takes advantage of people being unaware of their surrounding and uses very little, if any, type of actual technology to happen. It mostly is just the act of being in like a noisy or crowded area and then just trying to look over and see what the people around you are putting into their devices. It's often difficult too because even if it is detected, you may not be sure if the person was perhaps performing some form of identity theft or if they were just being nosy and snoopy. Um, the best way to counteract shoulder surfing is with obstructing devices like screen protectors, or oftentimes you'll see them on ATM shields that keep it so that it's a lot harder to see what you're typing. Sometimes all it takes is just paying attention to your surroundings and understanding that even a brief moment of distraction or just saying something out loud could lead to a security risk. When it comes to the impact of social engineering attacks, we find that the victims of these tend to disproportionately be at risk communities, such as elderly individuals. The theft of sensitive information, it oftentimes can lead to large amounts of hardship in individuals, and without the resources to get back any stolen information, individuals can often have their entire lives ruined from something like an identity theft. Um, Oftentimes, the at risk communities are unable to detect if installation of malware or malicious software has often occurred on their devices as well. And this can lead to consistent financial damage and fraudulent activities that just happens over and over again, where the individual may think that they have gotten the problem resolved, not to know that their computer or whatever infected device just continues to leak the new information that they have gotten. These attacks can also lead to long-term psychological impacts on the individuals, and oftentimes have very negative impacts on the victims.
The first step is research. The attacker gathers information about the target and their organization, such as their job title, work email, social media profiles, or organizational chart. This information is used to help the attacker understand the target's interests, habits, and routines, as well as identify potential vulnerabilities that can be exploited. The second step is planning. Based on the information gathered during the research stage, the attacker devises a plan to exploit the target's weaknesses or trust. This plan could involve sending a phishing email, posing as an IT support representative, or using other social engineering tactics to deceive the target and gain access to their information. The third step consists of contact. The attacker initiates contact with the target using a variety of methods, such as phone calls, emails, or social media messages. These initial communications are designed to establish a rapport with the target and build trust. 4. Building rapport. In this stage, the attacker builds a relationship with the target by using various techniques, such as flattery, sympathy, or authority, to gain their trust and lower their guard. The attacker may also seek to create a sense of urgency or fear to prompt the target to take action. The next step is manipulation. The attacker uses various tactics to manipulate the target into performing a desired action, such as revealing sensitive information, granting access to a system, or clicking on a malicious link. The attacker may use psychological manipulation or social engineering tactics to deceive the target into trusting them and revealing valuable information. Then, it's exploitation. Once the attacker has gained the target's trust and obtained the desired information or access, they use it to carry out their attack. This could involve stealing money or data, installing malware, or further compromising the system. The attacker may also use the system gain to perpetrate additional social engineering attacks against the target or their organization. And the final step is covering their tracks. To avoid detection, the attacker may take steps to cover their tracks, such as deleting logs or files, changing passwords, or using encryption. This helps to ensure that the attacker's activities go unnoticed and they can continue to exploit the target or their organization without being detected.
Player games like League of Legends and Valorant fell victim to a social engineering attack. In January of this year, the company announced that their system and their development environment were compromised, and the attackers exfiltrated the source code for League of Legends and TFT, as well as a legacy anti-cheat platform. Although Riot Games received a ransom email from the attackers, they refused to pay. Unfortunately, this attack has had consequences for the company. The exposure of the source code increased the likelihood of new cheats emerging, which has delayed their ability to release new content. As a result, Riot Games had to prioritize deploying fixes to their anti-cheat system as quickly as possible. Currently, Riot Games has not released the details on the attacker's techniques. Despite increased efforts in computer security, social engineering attacks remain a very real problem. In fact, according to the statistic from the Internet Crime Complaint Center, phishing, vishing, smishing, and farming are among the top 5 crime types in 2020, and their incidence has been increasing exponentially since 2016. Social engineering attacks are constantly developing new tactics to evade detection and increase their success rate. This makes it challenging for individuals and organizations to keep up with the latest threats. Here are some ways for defending against social engineering. We can provide regular training and awareness to employees about social engineering attacks, their common forms, and best practice to prevent them. We implement strong authentication protocols such as multi-factor authentication for access to sensitive systems, and we ensure that all software, applications, and systems are up to date with the latest security patches and updates to prevent vulnerability. We can use spam filters to prevent phishing emails from reaching employees' inboxes and establish policies and procedures for handling sensitive information and limit access to those who need it. We can verify the identity of any individual or organization before sharing any sensitive information or granting access. Monitoring network and system activity for unusual or suspicious behavior and respond promptly to any security incidents. And physical security measures such as security cameras and access control system to prevent unauthorized physical access to sensitive area.
Thank you for listening to our presentation on social engineering. Above are links to all of our sources and references that we used for this presentation.